On this episode of the Fantasy Flyer, episode 26, we are going to review all of the Week 13 games. We're going to catch you up on the super extra bit of fun side games standings, and we also have a special guest with us, the man himself, the commissioner of our 53-man fantasy league. His name is Zac Graham. He's going to join us for the entire show. You do not want to miss this. A special guest episode, a special episode to me and Taylor. Episode 26 of the Fantasy Flyer starts right now. Good day, Fantasy Flyer followers. We are back with episode 26. My name is Derek. I'm in the Fantasy Pad. Taylor is with me, as always, at Fantasy Dojo. Welcome to the Week 13 review. It is not just me and Taylor here. If you may notice, there's a third bubble. It's right here on my screen. I don't know if that's where it's going to show up. We have a special guest with us. He is the head of basketball content and an NFL and soccer contributor at FTN Daily, the host of the FTN NBA podcast and the North End podcast, a member of the reigning Dana Game Champions, the Bigfoots, and most importantly, the creator, commissioner, and three-time champion of me and Taylor's league, the greatest fantasy football league in human history, 53-man. It is Zac Graham. Welcome in, good sir. How you doing?
Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run.
There it is. Love it. We just rickrolled everybody.
That's right. I just rickrolled almost everybody. There's actually someone there. It's not just an empty box, so it could have been worse. Zac,
what an intro.
Yeah. Welcome to the Fantasy Flyer, my man.
Thanks for having me, fellas. I've like I told you guys before we hit record, been tuning in on the YouTubes the last I guess all season, really, twice a week. You guys have been grinding these episodes out. It's been a fun season. It's been entertaining, and I'm happy to be here with you guys. Finally, took 13 weeks, but we're here now.
I just read off your list of things to do. It's not like you're exactly a free man a lot. So for you to take some time to join us, it does mean a lot. So Zac will join us for this entire episode, all three parts. We go through our 53-man talk, and this adds another layer to it. So when we bring it to the show now, he can literally be like, yeah, that happened, or no, that's some BS. So we're going to start off the show as usual. If you're here on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it. If you are not on the Facebook page, like that page, do all those fun things for us. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Just to start off, we'll get all that gobbledygook out of the way. We're going to go right into the 9 segment, the news, injury notes, etc. Taylor is the guru of the 9 from the dojo. Take it away, good sir.
Sure thing. So, teams on bye this week: the Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, New Orleans Saints, and Washington Commanders. So another big week of byes, which is unfortunate, as some people may be starting their playoffs or some people are trying to claw their way into playoffs. So definitely prepare for that. Kick it off with Arizona. Unfortunately, Rondale Moore continues to struggle with a groin injury. He's listed as questionable, did not practice Wednesday. Kingsbury said on Tuesday that he hopes Moore will be able to return to action Monday against the Patriots, but did not sort of give any sort indication one way or the other. But I guess the fact that he hopes he will return is trending in the right direction. And then related to that, Greg Dortch is also questionable. So if Moore is out and Dortch is out, obviously the big names, Hollywood Brown and Hopkins will be full goes and should get plenty of work. Baltimore.
Do I get to be nauseous at the thought of Robbie Anderson playing?
Robbie Anderson is cooked. He has not done crap since like
Hey, take
one
it
game.
easy. That's a pigeon right there you're talking about, okay? Yes, I don't disagree with you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no.
You're good. Dude, that's it. That's all right. Go ahead.
I was hopeful that he would be able to do something here in Arizona, but he hasn't really shown his face much. Moving on to Baltimore. This is big. Lamar Jackson with a knee injury. Apparently, so he's listed as questionable, but I don't know why he's not already listed as out because he has a PCL sprain in his left knee. He didn't practice today, being Wednesday, and is week to week. According to Schefter, will miss 1 to 3 weeks. So I don't know what game they're sort of playing here, but it seems like he'll be out a couple of weeks, which means that you can expect Huntley to start. So that really sucks for people going into their playoffs.
I know you guys preach really good fantasy practices here, but in case anybody didn't know, when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, right, in a dynasty league, especially one where you have to start 2 quarterbacks, get his backup, especially when we've seen his backup, really perform when he's had to step in for Lamar in the past. Like, it would really suck if you like sold out to go win your first championship and then Lamar went down and you didn't have Tyler Huntley. That would be really tough.
Yeah, for sure.
Like really bad.
Huntley also sort of a running quarterback, not in the same level as Lamar, but to a degree. Carolina, Deonta Foreman, apparently not just the foot, but also some rib issues going on. List is questionable. According to Joe Person of The Athletic, Foreman said on Monday he expects to take the field Sunday versus Seattle. So that's good, but take that with a grain of salt coming from the player. And that being said, he did not practice Wednesday. Moving on to Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst with his calf listed as questionable. Zach Taylor said Hurst will likely be listed as doubtful for Sunday's matchup against the Browns. I believe it's actually already been updated to doubtful, so he most likely will not play this weekend. Joe Mixon with his concussion issue listed as questionable and was a full participant today, Wednesday, which was the first time since being listed as having this concussion issue in week 11. So that's trending in the right direction. But it remains to be seen if he's like fully cleared by the NFL according to their protocols. So keep an eye on that, but it's trending in the right direction. Cleveland, David Njoku. So unfortunately, the guy came back and then sat out a week. But it looks like he's trending in the right direction with his knee issue. Was a limited participant, and they're hopeful he'll play this Sunday. Denver, Cortland Sutton hamstring, didn't practice Wednesday and is not looking good according to Hackett for Sunday. Jerry Jeudy with his ankle was limited on Wednesday. He obviously played this Sunday, so that's probably I wouldn't be overly concerned since he was questionable all last week as well. Detroit, DeAndre Swift with his ankle, limited participant Wednesday. So I'm going to pause here for a second. This is kind of interesting because we've been talking about Swift and whether we thought he was ever going to be the number 1 back again this season. And obviously we were both like, he's the more talented guy. He should be. But there was 4 weeks there where his snap percentage was crap. And this was the first week where he really had the snap percentage and did something with it. It looks like he still has this ankle injury, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's trending in the opposite direction. It just seems like I don't know what to think of this. Like, if they're out of the playoffs, why put this guy in a situation where your future is like at a possibility of concern here?
Well, there's a dual thought to this because you don't want to put him at risk. You can use Jamal Williams because Jamal Williams is going to be a free agent. But there's also Jamal Williams is going to be a free agent, and you want to keep instilling this faith in DeAndre Swift. If the injury is lingering and he just outsnapped Jamal Williams this past week, like, I don't know if it's like injury maintenance, but it seems kind of odd that they're not really clear one direction or the other, I guess is where I'll agree with you. I don't really have anything else for that team because unfortunately most of that team has Jamison Williams is the most important part of that team to me right now because I want to see what they do with him going forward from now until week 18. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, fellas, about this Detroit team from my selfish fantasy standpoint was that I had way too much Detroit on my 53-man team. DeAndre Swift, Jamison Williams, the two you already brought up. TJ Hawkinson getting traded was fantastic for me. I will continue to bloviate about my team and how good it is the rest of the episode. So get back to actual like analysis here and join both of you. You guys are spot on with Swift, right? Like it's been so shaky. He's salvaged a couple weeks, especially in PPR, picking up the few targets that he gets, getting into the end zone on like 5 or 6 carries. 14 carries last week was a breath of fresh air with 23, I believe, combined in the previous 5 games. To your points, though, both of your points, I don't see why this team would run him out there for big snaps the rest of the way. They're out of it, right? Or soon to be. So yeah, that's a big worry I have, and I think all DeAndre Swift owners should be worried about that. And if Craig Reynolds is coming back off the IR, maybe people listening aren't in leagues that are that deep. But if your waiver wire is bare and you think maybe they're going to sit Jamal and Swift down the stretch, Craig Reynolds would be the guy.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and I paused there to have that discussion because like we're going into the playoffs and like you being a Swift owner, that's like obviously concerning as like if he's still dealing with this issue. Do you want to? Oh, did you got rid of him?
No. It would have been because I think I mean he's like Zach just said, he's had okay games on his receiving alone. Now he had his average targets, I would say, and out carried and out snapped Jamal Williams. He had 51 over 50% of snaps to 37, I believe, for Jamal. So
yeah, I guess I'm just still concerned as to whether they make the call as like to not play him or if the injury becomes like if he re-injures himself to a larger degree, you know. But anyways, we'll continue on. We can discuss more later if we need to. Houston, so you got this one. Davis Mills will return to the starting role versus Dallas. I hadn't seen that myself, but
and it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'll just put it in there. I contributed, so
yeah. Brandon Cooks calf, Nico Collins foot were both did not practice today, and both listed as questionable. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence sprained left big toe, so he didn't practice, but apparently they're not too concerned and should be back out there the rest of the week and good to go on Sunday, but definitely keep an eye on that. And then Zay Jones didn't really do much this week. Apparently has some chest issues going on and was a limited participant Wednesday. So hopefully that clears up for him. This is a big one. Las Vegas, who plays on Thursday, Josh Jacobs, who has had this quad issue and has been questionable for like 2 weeks going into both of the last 2 games, which he's been phenomenal in both the last 2 games. So I don't think it's too much of a big deal, but obviously not ideal coming into a Thursday game, the short rest week. Yeah, he was a limited participant on Wednesday, so I think it's fine to roll with him. Just a little concerning. Chargers, Mike Williams with his ankle injury, questionable, was a limited participant on Wednesday. This is good news, although we talked about the fact that they kind of brought him back too early, and we've obviously seen how that worked out for them. So I don't know if they'll continue to play it easy with him. The Rams, Wolford, who was significantly better than what's his name, Bryce Perkins.
Are you sure about that?
So he's got some neck issues, was limited participant Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, not that too many people care about this, but if you were someone who had Stafford and weren't able to get somebody else and you're playing Wolford, you might want to keep an eye on this.
That is the deepest of dynasty leagues.
Yeah, right. I mean,
the other fact is that they picked up Baker Mayfield, who very easily could play tomorrow.
Okay, I missed that. I did see that he
which
was
is
released,
scary.
obviously.
That's a
Yeah.
scary thought that Baker
Yes.
Mayfield is an important
I mean,
piece again.
aside from not knowing the offense, would you rather play Mayfield over Wolford?
I don't want to play Mayfield if he was on the team all season and I have Wolford.
I guess that's
No,
my point, right?
That's over. Yeah, it is a little. It's a cause for concern, obviously. But again, other than like the dartiest of dart throws, what do you want from this
No.
Rams team anyway?
Yeah, really. The only reason I kind of I put this in here was the team was significantly better with Wolford, and you had some people
Cam
serviceable.
Akers
Maybe,
was
yeah,
better.
like Cam Akers.
Cam Akers was better. I don't know.
Yeah,
No, it's you're dart throwing Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson and I mean Ben Skoranek, who was okay when Van Jefferson was out, and there was Allen Robinson and Cooper Cup, but now there's nobody, none of those guys, and Ben Skoranek. That's got to be to a certain extent the quarterback. So
yeah.
Baker Mayfield adds an interesting layer to a team that I still don't. I want them to almost disappear because at this point, if you're not going to have Coop, you're not going to have Robinson, you're not going to have Stafford for the rest of the year. You have Tyler Higbee, whose ceiling dramatically goes down. So I'm not really interested in anything to do with the Rams. The Rams are now what not the Cowboys, the Bears were the first 3 weeks for me.
Mhm.
So that's my take on it.
Yeah, nothing too crazy there. Maybe some DFS dart throws since they actually were close with Seattle. We'll get to that later. Miami. Jalen Waddle, fibula. He had a basically like he was non-existent in this game. So he was limited on his Wednesday's practice, so I guess that's good, but definitely keep an eye on him. I don't know if they're just kind of have him running out there to sort of take some of the pressure off of Hill, but not ideal. Tua with his ankle was listed as questionable, was a limited participant. Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network previously relayed that Tua could have returned to the game last week and is expected to start this weekend on the road against the Chargers. So it was like very late in that game, so there's really no point to him coming back for like 2 plays. So that's good to note. If for some reason he doesn't play, Teddy has been questionable the past couple of weeks, so not really sure if I would trust him either, but keep an eye on that. New Orleans, who I did mention, is on a bye. A couple of big injuries here. Juwan Johnson, ankle is out. Mark Ingram, knee, suffered an MCL tear and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Pittsburgh, Najee Harris with his oblique, questionable, didn't practice Wednesday. Deontay Johnson with his hip, questionable, did practice in a limited capacity on Wednesday. San Francisco, another big one. Jimmy Garoppolo with a foot injury is out. Shanahan is not optimistic that he'll return during the playoffs. So if I guess Purdy was serviceable. So if you don't have anybody else, maybe. Christian McCaffrey, knee injury. I believe he had this designation coming into this game and obviously had a big game regardless. So hopefully it's not too much to be concerned about. He was limited participant Wednesday. I think Jordan Mason and Kyle Juszczyk. Honestly, Juszczyk got more usage than Mason. So if for some reason McCaffrey is out, I would be looking at those 2 guys. Deebo Samuel, same deal here. The deep thigh bruise, limited participant Wednesday, same as last week. I wouldn't be too worried. He played through it fine on Sunday. Seattle, this is another big one. Kenneth Walker with his ankle. He's only listed as questionable at the moment. He didn't practice Wednesday. It was a little bit of a scary injury. He didn't come back the rest of the game. There's still either they're keeping it under wraps or the information around it that Carroll provided was a little like all over the place. So it's really hard to decipher what's going on here. So definitely keep in tune with his status throughout the week, but you may want to snag And honestly, I don't even know who you would want to snag because the other guys are all hurt except for Tony Jones. But I feel like DJ Dallas is, if he's healthy, the guy that you want. I don't know if either of you agree or disagree with that.
I mean, I guess if you're forced to pick someone, DJ got more snaps once Kenneth Walker left.
Right.
But you know who got a lot more work? Everyone else in the receiving core.
Yeah, especially Noah Fant.
So, and I don't think you're going to have the option of that.
Yeah.
So the Panthers also have a decent defensive front seven. Like Brian Burns has been kind of a pain in the ass to a lot of offensive lines most of the year. So, I guess DJ would be the way to go, but that's forcing it. I would honestly, I'd be looking at like Cam Akers if he's on, which he's probably on 50 to 60% of waiver wires right now.
I think it's going to be Travis Homer week. No practice for Ken Walker today, nor for DJ Dallas. Homer did practice, and he's certainly going to get the run over Tony Jones. And so I think if you're somebody that lost Walker and you're in a league where there's not a lot of options at running back, which I think is probably the majority of leagues at this point throughout the fantasy football universe, I think Homer, especially like in a PPR league, like I would rather have Homer over Akers because both of them are not good. And I think you have more upside in the passing game with Homer there next to Geno. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I forgot to mention that Homer was a limited participant and Dallas did not practice today. Yeah, that's good to note. Finally, Tennessee, Tannehill ankle injury was a limited participant on Wednesday, and it is worth noting that this was not the same ankle that kept him out weeks 8 and 9. And on the bright side, he himself does not sound concerned about missing this week's game. And then Treylon Burks, unfortunately, with that hit, is in the concussion protocols and didn't practice Wednesday. That is it for the 9.
That is it? Are you sure?
That's all I got.
One eternity later.
It was a long set. I mean, it's not your fault. You got to get the notes. I'm just
moving from Tuesday to Wednesday really adds a lot of information.
It does. That's the thing. We were filming on Tuesdays, and now because of basketball, I can't do Tuesdays and here on Wednesday. So, a healthy bit of 9 for the important ones. Obviously keep an eye on Josh Jacobs for tomorrow, and then I would say don't worry much about the Rams. If you have any of the Rams, then you worry, but you probably shouldn't. We'll go into the week 13 review. Select number of games we can chit chat about. We're going to start off Jets and Vikings. Vikings won this one 27-22. I put a little headline for some of these games because I think that it kind of gives us a tipping point apart. Minnesota holds off the white hot Jets. That's what I
like it.
White
I like
hot.
it.
Yeah, it's a bit punny, isn't it? Yeah, it's great. Well, it's just yet another proving point for Mike White. He passes the ball a lot more than Zach Wilson, which for fantasy purposes is a plus. Because if he throws interceptions, your wide receivers generally don't get hurt by it, other than the fact they can no longer score points that possession. Current issue would probably be the red zone. They had 5 field goals. That's a little tough. A little tough for them. A little tough right there. Minnesota red zone D was very good. Kirk Cousins, that's a plural. He had some good pressure. We've noted it all year. I don't know if ZG, you followed this during any of the other ones. The Jets have like one of the bottom 10 blitzing percentages in the league, and yet they create pressure on like 30% of their defensive plays.
Yeah,
which is just natural defensive pressure.
When you're picking in the top 5 for a decade, you're gonna get some dudes.
That's a hot take right there. Hot take right there. But he's right. Like you have so much, and you're seeing it with Sauce Gardner on the back end. Top 5 pick, kind of is creating some difficulties for just about anybody. I think he only gave up like 31 yards at some point in coverage to somebody. I think that was Sauce. So, Garrett Wilson is confidently probably your Jets wide receiver 1, and with Mike White, there's no reason not to have faith in him. He's getting targets all over the place. In this particular game, why did I not write him? Oh, I did. I just didn't put a little dingy next to his name. 8 for 15, 162 yards. Did he have a touchdown?
He did
Was it
not.
He did not. Okay, so I did write that correctly. Who were the 2 touchdowns for White? Because I didn't write those down, and I don't know why I didn't.
There were
Mike-
2 picks. There
Oh,
were
the
no,
2 picks?
There were no passing touchdowns. There was a
No.
rushing touchdown.
By Mike
That's-
White himself.
But yeah, the 350 plus
Oh,
passing
that's why.
yards.
Nope.
You got the bonus if you started Mike White, like the Pigeons did last week, and came through for us.
Yeah, that was
57 passing attempts.
That's what I'm saying. Like this team, when they pass, it's fine if you pass. When Zach Wilson's out there throwing 15 to 20 times a game, there's no interest in this team.
Mm-hmm.
There's none for me because it's like, yeah, Wilson's going to have 5, 6, 7 targets. And out of his 55 to 60% pass completion, if he's throwing it 20 times, 11 of them are complete. And then you're depending on a run game, which is not good without Brees Hall, it seems, unless you're Zonovan Knight.
Yeah, the fact that Saleh said that he expected Zach Wilson to be the starter again at some point this year is like, what? Like, or is it because quarterbacks like come out of the game sometimes and like Mike White will have to like maybe go take a pee and like you put Zach Wilson in for a series and then you put Mike White back in? Because like I understand the draft capital and the ish like how bad it looks on them, but like this is a good team. Like the Jets are not bad. And you can't squander this 7-5 record with a chance to get into the playoffs by just being stubborn and like trying to force the Zach Wilson thing.
Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense to do so.
You can't force your hand, and yet you see that something stupid is going to force this hand, or they're going to be in that position where they're down a touchdown, and Mike White has been playing bad, but the defense has been playing pretty decent. And they're only down by a touchdown, and Robert Saleh's going to find an excuse to put Zach Wilson in and be like, "Oh, Zach's been out of the game. He hasn't played in 3 weeks. He's been watching," and then he's going to come in and ruin everything because he's not. It's a little disgusting, but it's good for everybody on the Jets if Mike White throws 57 times.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Flacco in the first 3 games, which also separate note, don't know why they went to White, but instead of Flacco, but we'll let that one go because that's 2 weeks in the past. But if Flacco is out there averaging 54 pass attempts in the first 3 games, and you see Mike White come in for these 2, and he's also throwing over 50 pass attempts a game, there is huge, like I see DFS value in this lineup. I see deep league 12, probably beyond 12 team, but 12 team at times too, especially, I guess there's 6 teams on bye this week. So let's just say 12 team. There's value here if he's throwing the ball. Tyler Conklin doesn't look like a complete turd anymore. Elijah Moore actually had a touchdown last week, like not this week, but week 12, he had a touchdown. Oh, imagine that. Throw the ball and it works. Because your run game with Carter, I'm sorry, this brings me to my next point. This run game is bad.
Hey, 5 a carry last week. Zonovan Knight. I mean, like Garrett Wilson was the DFS chalk for the reasons that you mentioned.
So,
Zonovan Knight did you well.
Yeah, actually 6 for carry.
I want to throw away that Bears game. And here's the reason why. The Bears run defense is so bad. Like this was interesting to me. Moving on to this game, Zonovan Knight did just as well. What is Zonovan Knight's value going into next year? Because Michael Carter seems to like clearly not be the 2 behind Brees anymore. Is Zonovan Knight going to stay as the 2 behind Brees? Is Brees even the 1 anymore? He has a torn ACL.
Yes. Brees Hall is the one. Like this is not the Zach Wilson situation. Like ACL recoveries have come so far, like in all of our lifetimes, right? Like it's hard to have much worry of just a simple ACL tear, especially early in the year when he did it, right? Like I think there's not much conversation, but you bring up the point that like Michael Carter hasn't been great. Maybe Zonovan Knight does stick here.
It's something I would be, because Carter next year would be his last year before he has to get his 4th year option. Because he's around
3, right?
Right. And he only gets an option going into 4 because he's after the 2nd round. He's post 2nd round. So next year, I would not be surprised if next year they either ship him off for some low level pick, or if they don't, like I wouldn't be surprised they don't make it through the offseason with him at this point.
Sure.
Like, well, we got what we needed to out of you for a year and bye-bye. Yeah, White 31 for 57 had 369 yards, 69.
This is so cool.
2 interceptions, 1 rush touchdown. Zonovan Knight 15 carries, 90 yards. There you go. Also had 5 receptions, caught all 5 of his targets, 28 yards. I brought up Zach Wilson. No, we're not going to talk about him. We brought up Garrett Wilson's stats. 8 for 15 on 15 targets, 162 yards. Corey Davis had 5 catches on 10 targets, 85 yards. There's somebody who for 3 weeks was not fantasy relevant. Now he is because Mike White's throwing it. For Minnesota, Cousins 21 for 35, 173 yards and a touchdown. Dalvin Cook 20 carries, 86 yards and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson 11 targets, 7 catches, only 45 yards. Did have a touchdown, helping that fantasy value there. We're gonna stick to just below 20 fantasy points PPR for that. That's not bad. Hawkinson targets 4 catches, 33 yards. The Jets go to Orchard Park to take on the Bills. Minnesota will take on Detroit in Detroit. Any other final thoughts from this one? I'm more intrigued with the Jets. The Vikings are the Vikings. They should have won this game. I'm glad they did.
Yeah, if not for the Berrios drop, the Jets would have came back and won this. So Mike White, not too shabby. Definitely didn't look great in the first 3 quarters, but pulled off the almost comeback.
The almost comeback. Next game, Dolphins 17, 49ers 33. 49ers win this one. Game was a lot closer than the score indicates because of a late, was it pick 6? It was either pick 6 or a fumble return.
I
30
missed that.
It wasn't very, I thought it was pretty late in the game. Maybe the extra day is ruining my memory because I've slept an extra time since the game happened. But headline for this one, San Francisco losing Garoppolo for at least the regular season. And with the non-pickup of Baker Mayfield, it is officially Purdy time. Is it going to be Purdy? Who knows? But we're going to Purdy about it. Tua was not as efficient in this one. 18 for 33, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns still, but also had 2 picks. One of them looked pretty bad. I didn't see the other one, but one of them looked like it was you just shouldn't have thrown it to the left side. I don't remember who his target was. San Francisco it looked like their plan was to disrupt the pass game. So Miami's run game was MIA. In other words, MIA run game was MIA. That's absolutely perfect. Great little pun. Raheem Mostert with absolutely no presence. Also, as if it's fitting. What happened? There it is. Let me try that again. Jeff Wilson was nowhere to be found. Literally, just like that, just like the movie, you know?
My name is Jeff.
Brock Purdy led the 49ers. He did well. This is what we were talking about this in our 53 chat when Baker Mayfield was released and everybody was, he's going to go to the 49ers. And I got some kickback because I said he's not going to be much better than Purdy. And people were like, he's a number 1 draft pick or he's a first round draft pick. And I was like, yeah, but he got outplayed by an XFL quarterback in Carolina. So that doesn't mean anything to me right now. And it's the truth to me. And San Francisco apparently saw it that way because they did not put in a waiver claim for him. He took care of the ball minus, what did he have, 1 interception?
1, yeah.
Didn't do too bad. Had 2 touchdowns, threw it 37 times. So in a much smaller way, there's a pass. He's throwing it just a hair more than Garoppolo does. And that's interesting because you have a perfectly good CMC right there. My question coming out of this game is George Kittle the loser from the CMC trade? Because he has had less than, I believe, 6 targets in 3 of the 4 games since CMC has been there. And I don't think he's caught but 2 or 3 touchdowns. He hasn't seen the 6, 7, 8, 9 targets we used to see out of Kittle. Not to say that he's not trustworthy or that he's not, a valuable tight end, because he was really valuable before. But Debo and Ayuk seem to find their targets. CMC is getting his 8 to 10. That hasn't changed. Kittle is not the same Kittle that we've seen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think it may, if there was any hope, it may get worse with Purdy, depending on what kind of game plan but they're probably going to play it safe with some dump offs and short passes to McCaffrey and Debo. I mean, Ayuk had 9 targets, which bodes well, but you may also see Ayuk kind of drop out of favor a little bit with Purdy if they play it safe.
Yeah, I think it's tough to say, right? Because of the quarterback change. Like, if you just look at the game log for Kittle, it looks like he's on a downturn. And so, like, the fantasy results, yeah, it's been a downturn.
Right.
But I don't know how much of it is actually the acquisition of CMC, or just like last game, maybe he was going to have a better one, certainly garner more targets from Jimmy G. And then when Purdy came in, clearly he didn't look for him. And to be honest, like, I'm not super up on the tight end coverage and where they rank in Miami amongst the other teams in the league. It also may have been a matchup thing. Miami's defense is, I would believe, to be above average at this point. They are also one of those teams that has had a ton of draft picks, high draft picks over the last couple of years, spent some of those on the defense. So if you got George Kittle now, you're, from a fantasy perspective, right? You're riding with them because you're not going to be able to pick up another tight end that's going to project better unless there's something crazy happening in your league. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but he's been up and down all year, right? Like, he's had some really big games where you had to have him. He's had some games where he lets you down, just like this past Sunday.
Yeah. Dolphins are 30th against the tight end in fantasy points allowed, 9 a game. So
then maybe your problem was with Purdy.
That doesn't take away from your point, though, that there's a change in quarterback that happened in the middle of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm Brock Purdy, who is Mr. Irrelevant, I'm looking for the people who I know. I'm looking for Debo, 10 targets. I'm looking for CMC, 10 targets.
Yeah.
Like, you're still not wrong. It just means that actually, for all intents and purposes, that might make you more right. Maybe Kittle would have had none, and that was he got 3 targets because they're so bad against that.
Second lowest target in terms of total targets in a game for him on the year. Like, it may just be the ebb and flow of the season.
Those are facts. Tyreek Hill, 9 catches on 14 targets, 146 yards and a touchdown.
Is he the best receiver in the league?
He's definitely looking like it this year.
He turned around. I don't know what you guys thought of Tua before this year. I wasn't as low on him as like some people. Like, Tua's got some haters, right? But then you've got the Tua crew who like just love this guy, and the acquisition of Tyreek Hill is like kind of proving all those guys right. But I think it's more on Tyreek rather than Tua coming into his own. I just think Tyreek changes the game for any offense that he's on. Obviously, we've only seen him with 2, but the number of 150-yard games, he was at 1,000 yards like 8 weeks into the season. He's incredible.
He's an incredible wide receiver. And he had 146 in this one after in 2 games prior, San Francisco had held him to about 150. It was more than that. I think it was 170, but he did very well in this game.
Yeah. It's definitely between him and Devontae Adams, both him and Adams going to new teams and having phenomenal years right out of the gate, which most people didn't expect. You sort of expect a little getting used to each other there, but.
And Devontae was like, hey, remember me? It's because like he went through a few weeks there where he was just bad, but both in real football and for fantasy.
He's alive now.
Yeah. And we didn't even mention Justin Jefferson. Like, any of those guys could take the claim of the best receiver. And like, I guess it just highlights like the talent level that we have in the league right now. The league's in a good spot, at least at receiver.
Interestingly enough, a week from tonight on what would be episode 28, we were going to do the 3rd of 4 parts of the Fantasy Flyer Power Rankings for the final of the year, end of 14. Finish off the stats. We got about a minute left before we get a break. Trent Sherfield, 75 yards and a touchdown, his only catch, which is like the end of the first set of plays for Miami. Good for him. Jalen Waddle, 5 targets, 1 catch, 9 yards. Surely an outlier. If he's playing, you still have to play him and let this one go. For San Francisco, Purdy, 25 for 37, 210 yards, pair of touchdowns and an interception. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, 17 carries, 66 yards, 10 targets, 8 catches, 80 yards, touchdown in the air. Debo had 6 catches for 58 yards. Ayuk had 5 for 42, and then Kittle 2 catches for 22 yards. San Francisco will be against Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay this week. Miami will travel slightly down the coast to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. About 20 seconds left. Anything you guys want to add for this one?
Not for
Nada.
me.
All right. We're going to take our first break. We're going to hit the water cooler. We're going to come back for part 2. We got another couple games we're going to dive pretty deep into. So, Taylor, sign us off one more time. Welcome back
See y'all on the
to
flip.
the Fantasy Flyer. It's been my new Call of the Wild, Zach.
I've heard it before.
Okay,
It gets
perfect.
me
So-
every time.
It
That's
does,
good
right?
because it gets Taylor too, so it's absolutely perfect. Things that changed during the commercial break. I turned the TV off. I put Christmas lights up. Right
Hey,
there.
there you go.
Yeah. And then I got something to drink and had a handful of Reese's Pieces. I'm also standing.
That
Nothing
was
else
fast.
changed. I
You
did a
have, you have
lot
one of those guns from like
No, the cat messed with it. That's all it was. I used the cat.
yeah.
I really gave myself too much credit. Next game on our week 13 review. Chiefs and Bengals. Headline here, Kansas City's 5-game win streak has been snapped by Burrow and some key defensive plays. Never thought I definitely thought I would eventually say it, but I didn't think it would happen in this game where the defense would be a thing that steps up and hurts Patrick Mahomes to the point where he can't complete a drive. The first note that I put on this under the game was Mahomes is human ? Because he's my vote for MVP up until probably like I saw Jalen Hurts' performance. So like it's really close for me now with those two because I saw what Hurts did versus the Titans on Sunday as well, which was very good. Beast game really from Cincinnati. This team has an interesting dynamic. They like who'd they lose to? Like I think it was the first game against the Browns where they got absolutely demolished. It was like 31-10. Like they lose to the Browns, didn't score the first half of that game. And then they come out and go head to head with Kansas City. And they end up winning. The defense like kind of shuts down the final 2 drives from Mahomes. I don't really understand. Maybe that's the joy of football and I'm not supposed to understand. But their offense has like so many weapons. Like we know that. We can talk all day about Joe Mixon and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. We could probably make an episode just about those 4 human beings. But then, like when you look at the defensive side, Eli Apple, Von Bell, like Trey Hendrickson, you can't get like so much going on that team. I don't know where to really rank them anymore in like a power rankings. I want to put them in my like top 7, top 8, but like they play the Browns again next week. They could easily lose by 20 again. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. I'm not sure that I have much to add to that. I mean, you are correct. It was the Browns game. It was 32-13 Browns. I mean, what we saw of Deshaun, I don't have much faith in the Browns at the moment.
You don't have who? Wait, who is that? Who you said? You don't have faith in who?
Deshaun, he who should not be named.
Sexy and I know it.
There we go. Just for Deshaun. You said the magical word of the day. The word of the day is Deshaun. Kelsey had a rare fumble in this game. That was, I believe, what actually stopped one of the final 2 drives. Was a forced fumble. Mahomes was sacked in crunch time. He moves all about. So I'm so like, there's so many layers to this that like, and to have them go back and lose, the Kansas City Chiefs go back and lose again after losing to Cincinnati not once but twice in January at the very beginning of this year. Once before the playoffs started, and then in the playoffs at the AFC Championship game. This has got to sting for Mahomes. Like this has to be in his craw, like so hard. This is the worst thing, the worst time for that. Burrow was very efficient, 25 for 31, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mahomes was less efficient, which I think I've said all year. Like Cincinnati is like top 3 in like preventing opponent completion percentage, and it kind of rotates with like them and the Patriots, depending on who throws it 60 times against them and who doesn't. Mahomes was 16 for 27, 223 yards. I mean, it's not really like a horrible efficiency, but you're used to seeing like a 21 or 22 out of 27 instead of 16.
Right.
Mahomes only had 1 touchdown. The other shining and glimmering spot was the fill-in for Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, who looks like Joe Mixon isn't necessarily needed, and they have a very good backup because he had 106 yards and 21 carries, caught 6 of 7 targets for 49 yards. I like if Joe Mixon's out, you should have good faith in that fill-in, I would say, especially going to the playoffs. We just talked in section 1. Zach did. Hint, hint. You should pick up the handcuff. That's like a perfect example because you were very, very happy if you did that this week. Jamar Chase, 7 catches, 8 targets, 97 yards. T. Higgins, 3 catches on 5 targets, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Who had the other touchdown from Burrow? Was that P. Ryan?
Chris Evans.
Yes.
Chris Evans. That's right. That was the
Backup's backup.
The backup's backup. That's right. Mahomes, like I said, 16 for 27, 223 yards and a touchdown. Confidently the number 1 running back in Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, 14 carries, 66 yards, had a touchdown. He's now stepped into the passing game, 2 catches for 16 yards. By Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon officially going to be gone. Like, not officially in my mind. Marquez Valdez-Scantling was the team leader in receiving yards, 71 yards, 2 catches on 6 targets. Travis Kelce, like I said, probably not one of his best days, had the fumble, and also only 4 catches on 6 targets for 56 yards. It's not great. It's not great for him. Kansas City will be against Denver. That's a good bounce back opportunity. And Cincinnati takes on Cleveland again next week at home. Notes from you guys. I want to firmly put Kansas City as like a top AFC team, regardless of what happens. But this is a nice cause for concern when you lose 3 in a row to the Bengals, who could easily, with Lamar Jackson be out, now be in the playoffs from the AFC North.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Well, I had some other notes. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
If you
Sure.
have other
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Chiefs are. I'm not reading too much into the recent losing streak against the Bengals that you brought up. Like, both of these teams are loaded. If the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes at least 90% health, they will compete with any team in this league on any day. We've seen them they interchange these running backs, even the receivers this year with Tyreek on. It doesn't matter who you put with Patrick Mahomes. If they can run and catch a ball, like, they're going to find success. And I just think it's one of those games where Jamar Chase was back. Like, that was huge for the Bengals. And with them, like, they haven't really played anybody the last few weeks. So it was lucky that part of the schedule fell when their best player is out. And of course, you mentioned Joe Mixon and the work that Samaje Perine has done. I know I'm crossing more into the Bengals here now, but like, the Bengals are starting to roll, and the Super Bowl appearance was not a fluke. Like, maybe it was like a year earlier than what their timeline should be, but they didn't lose anybody. And if they're getting Mixon cleared the concussion protocol either yesterday or this morning. If this team is full go headed into the playoffs, this is exactly what they can do, make it back to the Super Bowl. And I don't know, they've got a shot against anybody too. I think these are 2 of the best teams, and lump Buffalo in there too in the AFC.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the fact that Mahomes unfortunately does have a sort of a less talented crowd than he's used to, and he obviously is still getting it done, but that's all on him. Like, at a certain point, if the receivers are becoming a problem, example, Travis Kelce with the fumble, like, that's not on him, So like, yeah, I mean, Mahomes is obviously a phenomenal quarterback and has an insane fourth quarter like comeback percentage. So
yeah,
I don't know how much I lose faith in them, but everybody's going to have some down days. I think there's not too much to read into this. One of the things I did want to point out that McKinnon, Pacheco had almost the exact same snap percentage. So McKinnon sort of trending up in his usage. And then also Valdez-Scantling becoming more and more consistently involved, although obviously not as his percentage of catch to target ratio is pretty low because it's usually bombs for him. So just a couple of notes there about sort of
Well,
their
it makes
usage.
sense. Like I said, this was a game where like going into it, I said on Friday's show, MVS was my pick for this game,
Mhm.
and it shows. I mean, he led the team in yardage, didn't have the most fantasy points, but was substantially a good waiver wire pickup. So I'm confident that will probably continue, and it's a good mark that it's good that you bring that up for his continued, I guess, placement on the field.
We're also
Um,
probably, sorry, Derek, I was just saying, we're
No,
also
go.
probably going to be looking here in 5 weeks at a 14-3 Chiefs team. Like if you look at their schedule that
Oh my God.
remains, it's I believe 2 dates against the Broncos. And I would love to talk Russell Wilson trade with you guys if we can carve out 6 minutes for it. At the Texans, home Seahawks, at the Raiders. That smells like 5 wins to me for this Chiefs team. 4-1 at the worst, barring some sort of injury issue.
Right.
For
I'm
sure.
100% behind that. That's like by a mile, actually. I'm confident. The toughest game in there, in my mind, is the Seahawks. Because the
Yeah,
Seahawks,
I agree. And if you look back at what they've done so far this season, there's one head scratcher. You lose at the Colts by 3. I don't know if you guys remember that game. I actually watched that second half. Like when the Steelers are on, as bad as they are, I'm locked in. So like I actually watched the second half of that game live, and it was just bad. It was like, again, one of those days where this is why we don't see teams go undefeated in the NFL, because you have a bad day, you lose to a team like the Colts by 3. Their other losses are Bills by 4, Bengals by 3. They're as elite as they've ever been, and the record is going to show that when all is said and done.
I agree. I can't say anything more. Like that is the Chiefs, and this is likely a candidate of one of the 3 possible AFC Championship games we can see. And I think those are the safe bet that those 3, barring injury, like you said, are probably be the AFC Championship game. So
you see a very similar playoff structure in the AFC with those top 3 teams, like you see in the 53-man league, where if you don't get the 1 seed, you got the 2 and the 3 got to face off, and one of them's going to be out of there. So it's you really want that 1 seed.
It makes a difference. Next game, Ravens 10, Broncos 9. I'm going to get the stats out of the way because there's 3 other things that we have to talk about this game that going into the fantasy playoffs, they matter. We already know what one of them is because we covered it in the 9. That would be Lamar Jackson's injury. I also want to talk to you about Rumpelstiltskin, aka Russell Wilson, and how that affects all of the rest of the offense for Denver, because he has been absolute Dooku burgers. So real quick, we'll go through the stats. Wilson 17 for 22, thumbs up on efficiency, 189 yards, nothing else. Latavius Murray 47 yards on 17 carries, 4 catches for 14 yards. Greg Dulcich, who's slowly had 2 quiet weeks, and then he pops back up out of nowhere like a jack in the box. 6 catches on 8 targets, 85 yards, led the team. Jerry Jeudy, 4 targets, caught all 4 of them, 65 yards. For Baltimore, was it Tyler Huntley? It is Tyler Huntley, right?
Correct.
27 for 32, thumbs up on efficiency, 187 yards, 1 interception, had 41 rush yards, and the only touchdown in this football game. Kenyon Drake led the running backs of the team with 29 rush yards. Disgusting. Mark Andrews, 4 catches on 7 targets, 53 yards. Demarcus Robinson, 8 targets, 7 catches, 41 yards. Devin Duvernay, 34 yards on 6 targets, caught all 6 of them. So let's get the elephant in the room out of the way, because words are still difficult. How and where are you starting Tyler Huntley? Like, how desperate are you for it? Like, and I guess we'll touch on this more if we get to the name game, but how are you starting Tyler Huntley? How do you rank the efficiency of this Ravens team with Tyler Huntley versus Lamar Jackson? Because Lamar Jackson had sputtered in the last few weeks. Hadn't been bad, but had sputtered.
I mean, the performance this game from Huntley was not great until the last quarter. Even then, the one touchdown was all there was. That being said, we sort of touched on his performances last season. He had a handful I don't remember the exact stat, but like he hasn't really been in the top, I don't know, 12 or 15 for quarterbacks, even when he's playing quote unquote well. So he's not going to be, he doesn't have a high upside. I think he has a decent floor though. So I would say after a week of playing with the first and being and like preparing a game plan with him, that he, I mean, obviously Matt Ryan can have phenomenal weeks, but I would say he might be a better play than Matt Ryan, depending on the matchup. And that kind of speaks to the fact that Matt Ryan is super inconsistent and sometimes has an insanely trashy game where he throws 2 or 3 interceptions. So I don't know. I wouldn't put a lot of faith in Huntley in terms of like being able to carry my team from a quarterback perspective, but I think he has a decent floor that if I'm struggling with a lot of inconsistency, say Matt Ryan again, then I might be willing to go with that little bit of a safer play and that rushing upside.
I'll go a little bit of a different direction. I'm 100% with you on the high floor there with Tyler Huntley. 4 starts, I believe, last year, at least one time where he came in early enough where it was like a full game's worth of stats, 40, 45, 73, and 54 rushing yards in those 4 games. So Taylor, like you talked about, there's your floor, right? Just on with the rushing. And then boosted a little bit by multiple touchdowns on the ground against the Packers, OT in that game, but did throw 2 touchdowns, 40 passing attempts, 38 against the Browns the week before. Both of those games, 21.2 fantasy points against the Browns, over 40 against the Packers, again, aided by the overtime. But if that's 2 of the 4 weeks that we've seen him, I would say he's got some upside. So like, again, it depends on your league, right? In a one quarterback or a shallower league, like there might be some options that provide a better floor ceiling combo. But I picked up Tyler Huntley in a couple leagues, some where I had Lamar, some where I didn't. Because if this is an extended absence for Lamar, like Tyler Huntley, especially in 2 quarterback leagues, is going to be a top 12 quarterback option down the stretch if he continues to start, just for the rushing upside alone. You look at all the best teams in 2 quarterback leagues, you have rushing quarterbacks and that high floor. So I think Tyler Huntley is a really good fantasy option at this point of the season. So that's where I'm at with him. And we'll see how it actually translates into success on the field for the Ravens, because I know the Broncos defense is elite this year, but 10-9, not inspiring.
It was not the most entertaining game, but looking forward, they play Pittsburgh this week.
And look, you see the Steelers regalia behind me. That team is decent now at the very worst.
They are. They still give up. They are still 30th against wide receiver scoring, which will only help the throwing game of Tyler Huntley. So I do want to point that out. So
it can be tough when your wide receivers are Demarcus Robinson and Devin Duvernay, but Mark Andrews being there is the security blanket that we saw. Like, it wasn't any of those other no-name receivers last year. It wasn't even Hollywood Brown. This was when Mark Andrews went on his tear last year, was when Tyler Huntley was in there. And so as a Mark Andrews owner in multiple leagues, another reason why I'm excited for Tyler Huntley.
It's true. So let's get to the ugliest of the elephants in the room. And that would be Russell Wilson, because this man is getting beat up in every direction. And I'm not talking about like he should be so happy he gets to play football 3 hours a week, because the other 165 hours a week, someone is down his throat about playing bad for those 3 hours. He's 17 for 22 in this game, 189 yards, right? The team isn't scoring. Red zone offense is just, I mean, like so bad. Like it's really, they cannot complete a thing in the red zone, it seems. Their defense, like I just talked about, is pretty elite. They have the, I believe, number 1 or number 2 red zone defense at under 30% now. That's good. But it's holding you up. I said on last week's show, after they basically folded the game, the defense cannot hold this team up. They can't, and it happened again really this week, right? You saw that the final drive, Huntley ends up getting to the red zone. He ends up getting to the 2-yard line. He ends up scrambling, getting the touchdown. That's the game-winning touchdown. So sorry, Denver, you lose again. How do you see this unfolding going forward? What's your prediction? And where are you putting this in terms of Judy, Sutton, who are now they're both playing. You have Dulcich, who just had a great game against, a relatively decent and upcoming Ravens defense that had been kind of stepping it up recently. What are your thoughts on the entire Broncos? I hate all of this for Russell Wilson, but he is playing bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm half surprised the defense hasn't beat him up yet, but I don't know. I mean, like, not to say that Brett Ripien is good, but he did even worse when he played. So, like, does that speak to how bad their like offensive plays or plan is, or does that just are they just both that bad? I don't know. I agree. Russell Wilson does not look good out there. I still hold out hope that next year will be better, but I don't know what needs to change to make that happen, because we talked about it early in the season. Like, Russell Wilson was not doing Russell Wilson things. He wasn't sort of doing a couple of scrambles here and there and extending the play and finding somebody down the field for basically a touchdown run. Like, he's just not doing what we saw him do in Seattle. And I don't know where that's coming from. If like, was that all Pete Carroll? No, obviously Russell Wilson was extending the plays on his own, but I'm at a loss of words as to like how to fix this, but he also has not looked great. And I don't know exactly where the problem lies, because he was by all, like everybody would have said, he was a shoe-in for Hall of Fame down the road, so I don't know.
The just to give a number to it, Denver is tied with Taylor, New England for last in red zone scoring percentage for touchdowns only, 37.5%.
Oof. Yeah.
So when they get in the red zone, they are failing 37 times, or they're failing, excuse me, let's do correct math. They're failing 63% of the time when they get in the red zone.
Love it.
Yeah, I think I'll say, first of all, Russell Wilson will still be a Hall of Famer, right? Like, we can't take away what he's done. But Taylor, like, I am with you on the sentiment, because what are they going to do with him? He's under contract until 2026, and the dead cap hit even that year is like $32 million.
Yeah.
So I think the only option is, like, I mean, first of all, I would almost cursed. I know we're trying to not do that on this podcast. I would sit him the F down and, like, don't cause further injury, because you need him to get in the best shape of his life this offseason and rejuvenate his career, because if he doesn't, you're going to need to rejuvenate your franchise, and that won't happen until 2026. So I think that's like, you need to bubble wrap this Russell Wilson, figure out what's going on, and if anything can be improved, and get back to even 80% of what he was in Seattle. Like, and you could say there was like a downturn last year, but he had the hand injury, came back and played. He was not 100%. And, like, I don't know if this is still residual from that hand injury, but this has the potential, right, to go down as the worst trade, not just in the NFL in the 21st century, but in American professional sports. Because if he is this now and doesn't get better, does not, have some positive regression, if I can use that term, like, it's just, there's not words for it, for how bad the situation is.
There is a chance. Okay. Right now, the way it sits, the Seahawks have the number 3 pick next year because of this.
A couple teams like that, right?
If the Bears, who are second, end up winning 2 games, there is such a chance that the Seahawks could end up with CJ Stroud, or the other side, Bryce Young, whoever, depending on who goes.
Yeah.
But you're pretty confident those are the first 2 quarterbacks off the board in some way, some order. That would, in my opinion, that would rank it up there with that worst trade in America.
Yeah,
they would have just got shelled. They just got shelled. That's all they did.
The Broncos are going to be bad then the rest of this time, so the Seahawks will continue to get top 5, top 10 picks from this trade. It's insane how bad this was, and and then on the other side, the best trade, the biggest heist in history by the Seahawks. Like, to know that Geno Smith is like how many times better than Russell Wilson this year? Like the Seahawks with this Jimmy G injury, the Seahawks are probably going to win the NFC West, which is insanity.
Yeah.
There's no way
They're
they
gonna
weren't the bottom of the division in any odds, any sports book, any prediction article, any podcast. They were fourth, and they're going to win the division.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's to answer my third question on behalf of, well, I guess myself. I still, there's still value to these wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. We saw Sutton go 4 games.
Disagree.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Hear me out now. Okay, hear me out now. We just saw Dulcich have 85 yards. We saw Jeudy the game before have 80 some on a touchdown, 6 for 80 some on a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. There's still some sort of value here, but the problem is, and what I'm a sense of what you are probably going to go to is you don't know where it's coming from or where, and there's no sustainability. Words are still difficult to any of it because Wilson is inconsistent. So, like for me, an R53 man, Dulcich for me is probably the safest out of all of them because he doesn't have anybody to compete with. He is the tight end one.
I agree with that for sure.
He's the 90% snap. If you went out when me and Taylor were talking about it 5 weeks ago, and we said go get Dulcich because he's not seeing 12 or 15 fantasy points right now, but by fantasy playoffs he could be. Now look what happens. He goes out and has a 15 burger for you. So this is the time for that to pay off if you did it. Jeudy and Sutton, you don't know, and then the only bright spot here, and it's not, you don't wish injuries on anybody, but KJ Hamler just went on the IR. So Kendall Hinton, maybe disgusting. I don't even know who else is there anymore because it's so backwards.
I'd rather play Kendall Hinton if he's starting at quarterback. And when he started at quarterback, he completed 1 pass. So
that'll tell you something. There's just like the Rams in Denver are currently 2 teams that are very the Rams much more so for me than Denver because despite Denver not scoring a whole hell of a lot, at least their wide receivers catch 6 to 8 passes a game and they can still put up 15 fantasy points. But the ugly the ugliest turnaround. I'm very intrigued. I will be surprised if they stay with Kansas City at any point for this game coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the defense, right? That defense can keep them in games, but the offense can't score nearly enough for them to beat playoff teams. And fantasy-wise, like Jeudy and Sutton, like they can have solid games. I don't know if they're like gonna put up a number at this point of the season where they're winning you a week or they're taking down, they're breaking a slate on the DFS side of things. So like, I'd rather not play roulette with the wide receivers. The point is well taken on Dulcich, like at the tight end position, much more shallow and with an upside like we just saw. You're spot on there, I think.
He has a touchdown there. He's the tight end 1 in the week.
Yep,
That's
100%.
disgusting.
Well, it's also a shitty week for tight ends, but to touch on Sutton and Jeudy, like they're sort of in my flex category. I don't have a lot of faith in them to be consistent. And I guess at that point, if I'm playing them in my flex, I'm probably going to look for somebody who has a little more upside than they do.
Fair point. We got about just under 10 minutes. We just got the 10-minute clock that popped up. Next game I'm going to go to the Dallas and Colts game because this was fun to watch for me. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I got to sit down with a bucket of popcorn, get sad for about 2 quarters, concerned for another few minutes, and then watch the greatest 4th quarter that I've ever seen the Cowboys pull off. Dallas scored 33 points in the 4th quarter, so they scored more points in the 4th quarter than the Ravens and the Broncos did in the whole game combined. It's great. We'll go from the lowest scoring set of scores to the highest quarter. I believe this is like the 1726th unique score or something in NFL history. There's only 7
scoregami action there.
Yeah, a little scoregami action. There you go. Most of their 4th quarter points were off turnovers. Let's be fair. Zeke and Pollard took turns being relatively unstoppable, mostly Pollard. Dallas started off slow. Indianapolis started off fast. But when Dallas is closer to the bottom of the barrel, there's only one direction to go. And when Indianapolis is at the top of the barrel, there's only one direction to go. And it showed its face by the end of the game. Malik Hooker, let's give a shout out to Malik Hooker here. He had 2 interceptions, or a fumble recovery and an interception. Fumble recovery was returned for a touchdown against his former team. Shows how much they valued him. Matt Ryan was okay. He actually had the 2 me and Taylor, we talked about this on Friday. Dallas can give up yards to the run game, and they did for the first 3 quarters. Jonathan Taylor had 82 yards and 3 catches for 21 in the first 3 quarters. He was having a good game. I kind of figured at some point he was going to get into the end zone, and it would be kind of one of those games where it ends up being like 32-29 or something. And then Matt Ryan started throwing to anyone in a white jersey instead of his Colts blue. What do you guys think about Alec Pierce? Because he was the leading receiver, wasn't even close, for Indianapolis.
I mean, he was kind of non-existent for like 3 weeks there, and then he came back here. He's obviously talented. I
didn't know he was 6'3". That was
Yeah.
point. I did not know he was that tall.
211 pounds. Yeah, he's
just
a
to point
solid
this
body
out,
for the end zone.
I drafted him. Didn't know he was 6'3". So we'll start with that. We'll get it out there. I had 0 clue. Yeah, he had 86 yards, 4 catches, 8 targets, and a touchdown. Also, shout out to Ashton Doolin for a huge burn on Trayvon Diggs. That's funny. Almost as much as all the rest of the turnovers. There's like 2 interceptions. Is it Blanton? Yes. I want to make sure I'm not saying his name wrong because he had 2 interceptions in this game. Blanton had 2 interceptions for the Cowboys. Hooker had the fumble recovery. There was another fumble recovery from Sam Williams because the Cowboys continued to sack the living crap out of Matt Ryan, and he eventually fumbled. Once this offensive line stops doing things for the Colts, it's been their problem all year. Matt Ryan has so many problems. He doesn't know which way to go, and it just shits ugly face. And then on the other side, Dak, Pollard, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if you guys saw the first touchdown of the game for Dallas where he basically got tackled but never touched the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a bright spot for me. Dallas defense had 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. And I believe off of those 3 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries, they scored 26 points in the 4th quarter.
That sounds about right.
So, where comparatively speaking of this, because this is something I've been in debate in my head with, because Philadelphia, who beat up on the Titans 35-10, I don't think this necessarily. I mean, the Eagles are a great team. I still have the Eagles ahead of Dallas on my board for ranking for best teams. And I'm a Dallas fan, so take that for what it's worth. Are you a Philly fan? Or are you a Philly fan or a Dallas fan here, Zach? Come on, lay it on me.
I like neither of these teams, but if I'm just going to, give an opinion about them, I think I'm still, if I had to lean with one team today, I had the Eagles coming out of the NFC to start the year, so I'll stick with them.
Mm-hmm.
They are pretty clearly the 2 best teams in this conference. Like I do not really buy into the Vikings being in the same tier as these 2 the 2 NFC East leaders. And like, who would have thought that the NFC East is by far the best division in football? Like, I think you could make an argument for AFC East, but like, I don't know. Taylor, I'm sorry. I don't know if I believe that much in this Pats team, nor do I believe that much in that Jets team. It's just nice to see the Jets trending upwards. NFC East is pretty wild, and these teams are going to feast on each other a little bit here down the stretch. I believe 2 or 3 division games for all 4 of these teams remaining on the schedule. So I'll slightly lean towards the Eagles, but the Cowboys are freaking good, man. They're really good. And they're clicking right now. What I guess if I could hijack the questioning here to direct one at the Cowboys fan, what are your thoughts on potentially signing Odell Beckham?
I haven't liked it. Haven't liked it since the start. Haven't liked this since the
Why,
start.
why is it the fit is a
You don't
distraction?
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
If it
Gallup's
ain't broke, don't
Gallup's
fix it.
looking more normal now, like back to what he was doing.
I
And
said what? How many? I
Schultz-
said that what 3-4 weeks ago, Taylor. I said you wait. Gallup is going to come back into form.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then it happened because
Yeah.
that's what happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a distraction, but he's a great player. He don't
Yeah,
belong
yeah,
with
he
the
is.
Cowboys. They're figuring this thing out. They know he don't
Mhm.
belong. He don't belong. Don't take stuff. Don't take it from. Honestly, this big sleeper out of the 3 wide receivers right now is Noah Brown,
Yeah.
who's actually good. So I don't go messing with it. And now the news that they said that they don't like his injury timeline makes me so happy. The news that came out earlier today, and I honestly go back to the Giants, please do, because they're not making the playoffs. You can keep him next year, that's fine. He ain't making the playoffs this year, so. And if I'm the Cowboys and he wants a deal that's more than 1 year, which is more important to you, trying to get Pollard back or signing OBJ?
Mhm.
Now,
point.
will they do the first? I don't know, because Pollard is a free agent.
You should.
Would it be smart to? Right. That's exactly. I'm not going to go scratching an itch in a different body part if this one's the main focus. So that's my. I'm so happy that they are probably not going to sign him as of this moment, which means I'll wake up tomorrow morning and he'll have Dallas for like $45 million. So, Dak 20 for 30, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Pollard 12 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zeke 17 carries, 77 yards at a touchdown, 3 catches for 16 yards. Good to see him in the passing game a little bit. CD Lamb 7 targets, 5 catches, 71 yards at a touchdown. Michael Gallup had 4 catches on 7 targets, 23 yards, had a pair of touchdowns. One that was a really nice placement in the back of the end zone. He like a fade back. It was really cute. For Indianapolis, Matt Ryan, 21 for 37, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, had the fumble. Jonathan Taylor, 82 yards on the ground, 21 in the air on 3 catches. And then Paris Campbell, 4 catches, 5 targets, 43 yards. Also, big shout out to Michael Pittman, who only had a pair of catches and was deserving of this because he was not. Let's just take a moment and be sad. Okay, enough of that. Dallas will take on Houston in what I'm sure will be an interesting game for Dallas fans again. Indianapolis is on bye, and they get to spend 5 to 6 days wondering how they got here. Anything else on this one for you? Like I said, I enjoyed watching this game. This was fun.
Nothing from me.
Nothing.
Definitely
Taylor?
didn't enjoy it as much as you, but it was impressive.
No, that's all right.
No, from the Indianapolis side, things definitely seem a bit better with Saturday, which is good for them. But the wide receivers, you sort of touched on Pierce. You obviously just had a sad moment for Pittman. You can't really be consistent with one of them. It's a shot in the dark with Matt Ryan. So.
Yep. And that's going to be the big fix for Indianapolis this year. I think we're all in agreement on that, is that they're going to have to find somebody who is not Matt Ryan, and they're going to have to find an offensive line. Real quick, we are going to take another break. Our final break, part 3, is coming up with Zach, the special guest. Zach, hey, how about you sign us out this time? How about that?
Hey, we'll be right back after this quick break.
Welcome back. Part 3 of the Fantasy Flyer, episode 26, the super extra fun special episode because Zac Graham is with us. He's our commissioner from our 53-man league. If you haven't been paying attention to the first 2/3 of this episode, in which shame on you. We're going to go into the express lane. We'll have some side thoughts. We're not going to get too in depth on the conversation with these games. Maybe a couple, but we'll start off with the Steelers and the Falcons. Quick overview of this game. Steelers win 19-16. I thought this game would go a little higher scoring than that because both teams can kind of catch anything they want when they throw the ball. But Pickett and Mariota also don't throw it a whole heck of a lot. So Pickett is turning into an average quarterback and probably going to be an above average quarterback. He's really selling. Deontay Johnson is seeing the benefit of that. I don't know if you've noticed the last 2 weeks, he's actually fantasy relevant again. Fryermuth is a key option for Kenny Pickett. Good to know. Tomlin, great coach. Let's figure this out. I'm still a fan of Tomlin actually hopefully getting to close to 500, if not above it. I know that's a long shot. For Atlanta, Mariota isn't, I don't think he's a long-term answer. I think that's becoming more evident by the week. And Drake London could really use a passing quarterback. He had 95 yards in this game, and Mariota had 167 throwing total. So that shows you how good that Drake London can be. Offense will probably overall enjoy somebody with a little bit more of an arm. Imagine where Garrett Wilson, like where London would be if he was in New York with where Garrett Wilson is. Like that was the big comparison that I made between the two. Yeah. Pickett, 16 for 28, 197 yards and a touchdown. He did not get sacked in this game. Very, very good. Good for the Pittsburgh offensive line. Najee, 17 carries, 86 yards. Pat Fryermuth had 3 catches for 76 yards. That was all in the first half. I thought he would 100 for sure when that happened. Deontay Johnson, 5 catches for 60 yards. Mariota was 13 for 24, 167 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Only had 17 rush yards. London, 95 yards on 6 catches. Tyler Algier, 52 yards on 10 carries. Cordero Patterson had 60 yards on the ground. I don't think he even had a target, if I'm not mistaken. Even if he didn't catch it, didn't have any part in the passing game. Makes me concerned for what they are doing with Patterson right now, but I have to see how that unfolds going forward. I don't like the Falcons making the playoffs. I don't like the Falcons as an overall football team for scoring a lot of points, but they're learning some things. Pittsburgh will take on Baltimore at home. Atlanta goes on bye, so they're one of these 6 bye teams. Commanders and Giants is the next game. This game, no one won. And I don't mean like that because the score says they tied, but literally this didn't help either team in the NFC East be the 3rd team in the playoffs. Like one came in 7-5, the other came in 7-4. Either one could have got to 8. Like this is the worst turnout I think for both teams, honestly, because neither one will end up making the playoffs. Neither team really took a step forward. Giants didn't look amazing. Washington looked pedestrian, I guess. They couldn't really stop the run. Jones had, 71 rush yards. Saquon had 63. Just a hair over 130. Pass game is sticking out like a sore thumb for the Giants. They need somebody who can catch the ball. I really wish for their sake that Wan'Dale wasn't hurt because that team would look so much different with Wan'Dale Robinson, like a mile different. Heineke still favoring Terry McLaurin. That pattern should have been recognized and established well before now because it's been like 6 weeks he's been a quarterback and Terry McLaurin is super relevant since Heineke's been back. Rush game, not all that great here. It could have been worse, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Heineke, 27 for 41, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson, I almost just said Bijan Robinson, which is also wrong. 96 yards. We're gonna give Derek one of these.
That's wrong. You're not doing good so far.
McLaurin, 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Brian Robinson, 96 yards. Don't know if I said that. Jahan Dotson, 5 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown for the Giants. Daniel Jones, 25 for 31. Good completion percentage, 200 yards, had a touchdown, 71 rush yards. I mean, he did most of what he's done all year. So you can't hate on him too much when you're throwing to the guy from the lemonade stand. Sorry, Isaiah Hodgins. 63 rush yards for Saquon. Also had 5 catches for 18 yards and a touchdown. Darius Slayton, 6 catches for 90 yards. Hodgins, 5 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. I kind of hate it for both of these teams, but in my honest opinion, I don't think either one of them have stood the test of time season long to be in the playoffs without giving an easy win to somebody. Washington's on bye this week. The Giants will take on Philly, and I don't like that matchup for them where they stand. Any thoughts so far on the first 2 games from you guys? I mean, quick little rundowns if you got anything.
Well, I got to chime in on my Steelers, and I'll keep it brief. You mentioned Tomlin getting back over 500. Look, I'm a homer. But the Lamar injury did a lot more for, I think, the Steelers than it certainly did for the teams that I have Lamar on, even where I got Tyler Huntley. I mean,
Okay.
look at the remaining schedule. If Lamar's out for an extended period here, let's say 4 weeks, you get to see the Ravens without Lamar.
Reports were 2 to
twice.
3.
You get to see him at least once with just Tyler Huntley, and Lamar Jackson has not had success against the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout his career. So I'm not super scared of Baltimore in the first place. At the Panthers, home for the Raiders, home for the Browns. 4-1 gets you to 9-8, and the streak continues. And I'm putting in the call on the fantasy flyer today. 9-8 Steelers. I'm not saying they make to the wild card, but 9-8, I'm a believer.
Wow.
Here's a guy
Look, when you have the trio of Watt, Hayward, and Fitzpatrick on the field, they're gonna compete in any game. And you mentioned earlier,
But there he goes.
you mentioned the offensive line not giving up any sacks last week. They've also been a lot better in the run game over the last 3 weeks. You've seen the resurgence of Najee Harris fantasy-wise. Jalen Warren being out helps that fantasy-wise, but Jalen Warren being in also helps this run game. So again, it's not going to be pretty. They're going to win more games like they did 19-16 against some of these lower level teams, but you beat who's in front of you, right? As
Right.
Tomlin says, the standard is the standard, and the standard is above 500, and that's going to continue.
Anything from you, Taylor, in either of these 2 games?
I did have something, but it has escaped me.
That's
That's all you need to know.
Zach sucked you in. Great Steelers. Okay. Next game, Lions and Jaguars. I thought this game would be closer. Lions win 40-14. The only game on the schedule, I'm just going to ring a little bell for my Cowboys here. The only game on the schedule that had a total combined points that was anywhere close to the Cowboys' total points in their game. The Cowboys scored 54. These 2 teams scored 54. That's it. Jaguars. I don't know, man. The AFC South and the NFC South are both a mess, specifically in this condition, the AFC South. They seem underpowered. They just seem, I don't know how, because they have 2 really good wide receivers. Zay Jones, more so Christian Kirk. Trevor Lawrence was not inaccurate is a bad term, but he was kind of inaccurate. 54% snap, 53% completion percentage, I should say. Christian Kirk was fine. Ingram had a step up, but there wasn't really much of a run game. Travis Etienne was held in check. For Detroit, Amon-Ra, number 1 here. Surprise shout out to Jameson Williams for only having 1 target. I don't know what his snap percentage was. I haven't looked at that yet. Jamal Swift, good God. Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, both splitting the carries like we mentioned earlier. Williams 11% snaps. I actually had it up in the other window and I just had to reference it. So 8 snaps total. I would expect that to go up. So no hate for Jameson Williams now that I understand how many snaps he took. Lawrence 17 for 31, 179 yards and a touchdown. Etienne 54 rush yards on the ground. Christian Kirk 6 catches, 104 yards. Evan Ingram 5 catches, 30 yards and a tutty. 1 touchdown. Jared Goff, 31 for 41, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Good game for Goffy there. That's a good one. DeAndre Swift, 62 yards on the ground on 14 carries. Also had 4 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. Jamal Williams, 35 yards and 11 carries and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown with a absolute manly stat line. 11 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. DJ Chark, 5 for 98. Hey, who was in my fantasy flyers this past week?
Yeah, you did have that.
Yeah, it was DJ Chark. Wow, what happened there? Jacksonville will travel to Tennessee for their next game. Detroit will host the Vikings. Spoiler alert, somehow Detroit is the favorite in that matchup. Don't know if I agree with that one. I know that Minnesota is not necessarily the Eagles or the Cowboys or the Bills or the Chiefs, but there's an actual defense in Minnesota. I don't know. Next game, Browns 27 to the Texans 14. If you take the defense out of this, Texans win, which is important to know. Deshaun Watson.
I like sex.
He is back. He did not really play that well. But it's Deshaun Watson. Like, it's the important thing that you have to know. He is rusty. You kind of brought that up, Taylor, last week. It kind of showed its face. 12 for 22, 131 yards, 1 interception. The Cleveland defense, like I said, won this game for the Browns. They had I think they had 2 touchdowns off of turnovers directly, if I'm not mistaken. Watson looked out of sync with the offense. Oh,
Sexual harassment is a very serious charge.
we're just going to keep playing all of these to hate on Deshaun Watson.
Women are not people. They are devices built by the Lord Jesus Christ for our entertainment.
There we go. That's all for Deshaun Watson. So welcome back. The defense for Cleveland had at least a turnover. I don't see anything else on this, and that means I was wrong. But that's okay. Turnover for a touchdown. That was a fumble recovery. Nick Chubb, 80 yards, didn't run as successfully as I thought that he would have. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 3 catches for 44 yards. Amari Cooper, 4 catches for 40 yards. Houston is a mess entirely, and I kind of don't want to talk about them. It's kind of a sore subject. Kyle Allen, 20 for 39, 201 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Damian Pierce has caught the flu that is the Houston Texans. He has 73 yards. Chris Moore, 3 catches for 46 yards. Brevin Jordan, 4 catches for 46 yards. Nico Collins, 3 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Hey, Taylor, who else was in my fantasy flyers?
That I don't remember. Did you have Collins?
Yeah, definitely
Okay.
did. If you're not catching the gist, I won. I texted you that in the middle of
Yes,
Sunday.
that I did know.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, because I also had Cam Akers. 2 touchdowns. Cleveland will take on Cincinnati. Houston takes on Dallas. I don't like Cleveland's chances with Cincinnati kind of beating Kansas City. I don't like Cleveland's chances to make the playoffs. I don't think the Ravens are going to be bad enough to necessarily fall behind the Browns. So Deshaun Watson, get ready for next year. Packers, Bears. Packers win 28-19. Christian Watson is very good. That's the most important note. If you needed this game to convince you, then you haven't been watching for the last 3 weeks. He has 8 touchdowns in his last 4 games, including this one, scored over 110 fantasy points in his last 4 games. Somebody get this man a cool towel. Aaron Jones leaves the game. A.J. Dillon filled in well. I didn't like A.J. Dillon coming into this, but injuries will do that. Aaron Rodgers continues to perform well against Chicago. This is the same game as last year where he told the Chicago Bears crowd that he effing owned them. So that's nice. For Chicago, Fields, he took a bit of a step back. He had a good completion percentage, 20 for 25. He also had 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. He ran for his usual 70 yards and a touchdown. That's kind of par for the course. But the turnovers is kind of what caught me off guard because he's been fairly decent the last few weeks, not turning the ball over, minus this before his injury anyway. Chicago has lost 6 games by 1 score, which almost happened in this game. Didn't happen, but they're having a hard time closing out games. They would be, if those results were switched, they would be 8-4, which is harmful. It's just harmful. Aaron Rodgers, 18 for 31, 182 yards and a touchdown. A.J. Dillon had a touchdown on 93 yards on the ground. Christian Watson, 3 catches, 48 yards, touchdown in the air, had 1 rush for 46 yards and a touchdown as well, went in untouched. Alan Lazard, 5 catches on 6 targets, 67 yards. For Chicago, Fields, 20 for 25, 254 yards, the 2 interceptions, 71 rush yards, and a touchdown. Touchdown for David Montgomery, who also had 61 yards. Equinemius St. Brown, name that Pokemon. 3 catches for 4 targets, 85 yards. Cole Kmet, 6 catches, 7 targets, 72 yards. Both of those teams are on bye. Any notes from the last 3 games that I went over? Anything you guys want to point out? Anything that doesn't make you sick to your stomach about much of what I just talked about?
No notes from me.
Okay, that's good. Taylor, I know you're still writing, so it's okay if you're not.
I did expect, like you said, the Lions Jaguars game to be closer. That was pretty disappointing to see.
Yeah.
And then, Jameson Williams played a little bit in this game, but obviously he's still getting up to speed. So, like to see more of that. Yeah. Like you said, A.J. Dillon coming in for Aaron Jones after the injury. we've seen this in the past. So if Aaron Jones is out, continue to use him. Christian Watson, I mean, he's just on fire. I don't know what finally triggered this. I guess being healthy, but he's had like what, 2
Not having your
touchdowns average
quarterback
per
beat you.
games.
Yeah, he's 2 touchdowns a game is his average of his last 4. It helps when your quarterback doesn't hate you.
Yeah,
Romeo Dobbs being out also helps.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, yep, that's true. Big one there. Last 3 games, Chargers and Raiders. Raiders kind of turned their defense around a little bit. Looks better, especially second half defense. There was a point in there where they were just giving up all of the points in the second half and they weren't able to score. They don't get the one-sided on the D. That's how what I referred to it. And they don't focus plays or drives on pressures or doubling receiver. They're more of an all-around zone defense. That's basically what I'm saying. More organized. Jacobs, another good game. He is your leading rusher now for the NFL. That's something I didn't think I'd say 5 weeks ago. Adams is carrying the receiver load. Other than Mac Hollins, he's the only person who had more than 3 catches. So only other person, I should say. Team in general looks much better. For the Chargers, Keenan Allen is back in the mix of things. Good to see him get 14 targets, catch 6 of them, 88 yards and a touchdown. Gerald Everett had 80 yards on 5 catches. Austin Eckler had his usual 5 or so catches, 67 yards, also rushed for 35 yards. Justin Herbert, 28 for 47, 335 yards, and that 1 lone touchdown in the air to Keenan Allen. Derek Carr, 16 for 30, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Jacobs, 144 rush yards and a touchdown. Also had a couple passes. I think caught 2 for 6 or something like that. Adams, 8 catches, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mac Hollins, 5 catches for 35 yards. Really nothing out of the ordinary with those numbers. Next up, Raiders will take on the Rams in Thursday Night Football. Chargers will take on Miami. I guess I'll stop here and quickly notate the Thursday Night Football game again. The Raiders should be the only team that, well, not should be. I guess you can target who you want to. I'm not getting any piece of the Rams. Jacobs, fine. I think just about every receiver that's faced off against the Rams in the last 3 weeks has done really well. Look at Lockett and Metcalf this past week. Perfect example. The Seahawks scored 27 points. They each had 250 yards in the air combined. It was really well. I like Hollins. I like Adams. Play Josh Jacobs because the Chargers are 30th against the rush. Or not Chargers. Well, they just got done with the Chargers, so the Rams. So you can still play Josh Jacobs. Doesn't change my stance. Anything else from you as far as the Thursday night game? I'm not going to be watching this one, and not because I don't want to, but it's because I don't want to.
I just would say I don't think any team should sign Josh Jacobs to more than a 1-year deal for the rest of his career. Because if this is how being in a contract year makes him play, he's the best running back in the league. So if you need that pressure, Josh, sign the 1 year. Because like you, Derek, I didn't see this coming. I didn't think that we would ever say that Josh Jacobs would be leading the league in rushing while on this Raiders team.
170 yards.
Yeah.
Not
he's
even
been
close.
incredible. And I'm taking shots at him. He's been great. Josh, congrats on the season and congrats on the contract, which is probably going to be more than 1 year.
It probably will. I can't think of another free agent that'll be quite as valuable as he will.
Not at the running back position, probably. Yeah.
Pollard's behind him. Montgomery's behind him. Who else is even in the neighborhood? I can't think. Miles Sanders, maybe. That's it. And they're not touching him as far as I'm concerned. I also will take the Raiders on, especially if Baker Mayfield plays with very limited time to learn the playbook. I will take the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. Oh, hey, here's that Seahawks and Rams game I just talked about. Spoiler alert. Lockett and Metcalf had a lot of yards. Wolford could have been, we'll start off with the Rams. John Wolford could have been worse. We talked about this earlier with Bryce Perkins and the switch to Wolford. Still wasn't great. 55% completion. He only had 1 throw over 25 yards. So thank God Cooper Kupp's not there to be angry. Cam Akers is fantasy relevant when Stafford doesn't start. The first 9 weeks, they were 31st and then 32nd for a good chunk of time in running the ball, like the percentage of plays running the ball. They didn't run the ball. There was no play action. They just had to hope Cooper Kupp got open, and then they threw it to him. And now they're gone, and all of a sudden they're like, well, it turns out we actually have to run the ball. And they got rid of Darrell Henderson in the middle of this switch. And now you have a lowly Cam Akers who just 10 weeks ago would have probably thrown eggs at Sean McVay's house. And now here we are, and he's getting a solid amount of time on the field. He's being pretty decent, and he's scoring. It's amazing what happens when you put hard work in and you treat young talent the way it should be. Both ways, by the way. That's not just at Cam Akers. That's from Cam back to Sean McVay. Geno Smith for the Seahawks anyway. Geno Smith was extremely good. Arm accuracy, all good. Top 5. Is he a top 5 quarterback in the league?
I don't think I can say yes to that, but I
Saying
might give him.
Geno?
He is currently in fantasy points. He's the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
4th.
I don't
It's
think that
disgusting.
translates.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Considering, I mean, he doesn't rush like other quarterbacks. Like he's not like a Jalen Hurts rusher or a Patrick. He doesn't rush like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. Like
Hey, I'm a fan of the you probably call it a comeback story, right? Because Geno Smith was perennial backup after being such a good college player, but like, I don't know, man. I don't think he's anywhere close to a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the league.
Now I have to look this up because I want to make sure that was in PPR and not standard. Of course it was standard. But whatever. Still, the point is he's been very good. I'm not gonna hate on that take because it's not like they're 10-3 right now. So
Yeah.
or 10-2, whatever. Lockett and Metcalf in this game went absolutely bonkers. Let's see, Lockett 9 catches, 128 yards and a touchdown. Metcalf 8 catches, 127 yards and a touchdown. Noah Fant 4 catches, 42 yards and a touchdown as well. Geno altogether 28 for 39, 367 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. I just listed all 3 touchdowns for you, so there's no secrets. Rams Wolford went 14 for 26, 178 yards, pair of interceptions. Cam Akers 60 rush yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Tutu Atwell 2 catches for 48 yards. Van Jefferson 2 catches for 39 yards. I think Powell had 4 catches and no one else really had much of anything. I don't think anybody had more than 4. Seattle takes on Carolina in Seattle this week, and like we just mentioned, Rams and Raiders Thursday Night Football tomorrow night. Last game, the Monday Night Football game, Buccaneers win 17-16. So just when you think the NFC South could finally start to look like it maybe possibly eventually somewhat perhaps be decided, the Saints started the first 3 quarters of this game beating up on Tom Brady. And then Tom Brady took the 4th quarter and made it his own and won the game. So take that for what it is. But Tom Brady is 3-1 with 2 game-winning drives since he had a divorce. So it's important to note that. I mean, it's not really important, but it is kind of odd that the team played horrible and then all of a sudden he got a divorce and was like, all right, I guess I'll play football for the rest of whenever. The Saints
I'll tell
are
you this. They're still horrible. The Buccaneers are not a good football team.
Their offensive line makes them look way worse than the offensive line's their problem. That's really what it is. Rashad White actually is a nice breath of fresh air until teams will scout him effectively. Because they don't know who they're dealing with at this point. Saints are a mess. Alvin Kamara is suffering from the lack of offensive intensity. That's the way I've worded it here. They don't move the ball. One person cannot, me and Taylor talked about this on Friday with Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots. One person cannot move the offense. It's so easy to just shut them down. Olave is getting hurt by this. This will be the 3rd week in a row I've said it. I may vote for put Jameis Winston back in. I know Dalton is like, okay, he didn't do bad here. The team doesn't move, and Dalton's not on the team next year. So what's going to make Jameis Winston want to come back and be like, "Oh, let me play," because as soon as I get hurt, they're just going to put in, Cooper Rush or something. Do you like putting Winston in at all, Zach?
I think I would just trust that coaching staff that they have seen enough in practice that there hasn't been a revolt yet among the players that they continue to start Andy Dalton. I just think Jameis is probably not that good. Andy Dalton isn't that good either. And like you said, the Saints are a mess.
They are. They're an absolute mess.
So I just don't, I mean, you could, I guess. It's just I think I trust that they know it would be worse.
Well, is this the second? Because this is like the other side of the coin to DeAndre Swift. Because you don't want to hurt DeAndre. He's coming back. Jamal Williams is going to be. So now let's talk about, Dalton isn't going to be coming back at this point.
Right.
Or, well, you don't know it, but you have to re-sign him. If you do, Winston's not going to be your friend, because Winston was signed to be the starter. And he even said, it came out publicly after he was officially noted as a backup. He goes, "I don't know what I did wrong other than get hurt." And now he's supposed to be there next year, and Dalton's not. And you're losing game after game
I'm not gonna take what the guy who got benched says at face value. I don't know what I did wrong. I'm sure that if we asked the coaches and they could be straight up with us and like we were just in our own little box and it wouldn't get out to the rest of the world, they would fill us in on some boneheaded thing that Jameis Winston has done either on or off the football field, or maybe both, because he's got a history of just being a little bit of a numbskull. Like, it is what it is. It's fine. He's had great fantasy seasons. He's had above average seasons as an NFL quarterback. We haven't seen it for multiple years, and like, there's probably reasons why.
That's fair. I won't hate on any of that because there's probably something dumb, but also to a certain point, are you there to win? Because you ain't done a lot of winning.
That's true.
Brady 36 for 54, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, 49 rush yards, 6 catches, 32 yards. Rashad White had 6 catches, 41 yards and a touchdown, also ran for 28. Dalton was 20 for 28, 229 yards and a touchdown. Kamara 26 rush yards, 2 catches for 11 yards. That's I don't know. Olave 4 catches for 65 yards. Tampa Bay is in San Francisco. New Orleans is on bye. That's all the games. Real quick update on the host v host and super epic bit of fun side games. That was last week. Taylor won our matchup because, well, my team did horribly.
But you also traded away some people.
Well, yeah, but the people who were in there were still horrible.
My team wasn't much better, so I squeaked it out.
Yeah, I don't know, squeaked it out. You won by like 40 points. However, I won the fantasy flyers, 5 fantasy flyers. I'm going to give you a total in a second here. There it is. Let's see. Oh, I didn't write the total down. Oh, I didn't have to. Cam Akers had 19 fantasy points. DJ Chark had 14.8. Your highest was Cordero Patterson, who had 6.
Love it.
So demolished.
Have you guys talked about your all-time head-to-head record?
Oh, no, I have not. No,
So.
it's probably
5
still
to 3 in favor of Taylor.
That's what I was about to say. I'm pretty sure it's Taylor.
There you go.
We both got one of our 3 players for 10 extra points. Neither one of us got our upset. So, and we each got 3 points for the actual games because we had Minnesota over the Jets. Nobody won the Washington and Giants one. Kansas City and Cincinnati, we both picked Kansas City. We both were wrong. So, all in all, after that one's 160. I have 170, and you have 159.
All right.
There we go. So I'm currently winning. We'll go touch more on that on Thursday. But now we are to the name game. We have about 7 minutes, so it's not going to be as long of a name game as we wanted, which is unfortunate. But this week alone, as it stands, we'll go with like a flex. So out of a good flex, that way we can lump 3 of these together. Who wants to start off with? I'll start off with one. Screw it. James Cook or Darius Slayton, to either of you. Don't care who.
And this is just for this upcoming week.
Just for this
correct?
upcoming week. So Buffalo versus the Jets and the Giants versus the Eagles.
I mean, with the workload that he got last week, give me James Cook. I don't really care about the matchup if he's going to get that many opportunities. Young, explosive rookie. There's a reason they spent the draft capital on him. It may be his time. Give me Cook.
Yeah, that's where I was leaning as well.
Okay. Zonovan Knight, assuming that Michael Carter still Zonovan Knight or Michael Gallup.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it is.
Oh man.
Jets versus Buffalo. Gallup will take on the Texans. Dallas versus Texans.
Obviously, on paper, it's a better matchup for Michael Gallup, but with the injuries that the Bills have been sustaining, I'm not as nervous about facing their defense anymore. And with how involved, like you mentioned, how involved Zonovan Knight was last week, I mean, causing us to consider maybe is Zonovan Knight going to like make an impact on this team in seasons going forward. I think give me Zonovan Knight, even like it. The Dallas could very well score another 14 points with their defense, and Pollard and Zeke get in on the ground, and the Gallup just doesn't get fed here. I think that you've got guaranteed opportunities at least for Zonovan.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is the guaranteed, the better floor with Zonovan. And Zach touched on this earlier. Last week he had almost 5 per carry. This week he had 6 per carry. So he's been doing pretty solid what he's had.
Love it. Where's the one I just had? DJ Chark.
Oh God, I lost some money on him last weekend.
DJ Chark or Cam Akers?
Oh, can I say neither and just like take the bye?
So Zonovan Knight for you. Got it. All right.
It's Chark for me just because of the upside. Like if Akers falls into the end zone twice again, good. I'll shake your hand. You win. I think DJ Chark is the one that's more likely. I mean, he's a deep ball receiver. Like he is a big play guy. So it only takes one for him to beat out Cam Akers, who is, I feel for the guy, but he got his ring. He's still in the league despite the Achilles tear. And like, while he's not what he was and probably never will be, I think the best we can hope for is a Deontay Foreman-esque career for him, which is still pretty darn good. So yeah, I can't choose Cam Akers there. Give me Chark.
That's fine. I don't hate that. All right, we'll go strictly tight ends on this one because I like this. Taysom Hill, who should probably be picked over just about anybody in this list. Taysom Hill or Evan Ingram.
I mean, I think it's just gonna be Taysom for me because they're going to scheme some touches to him, whether it's passing, rushing, catching the ball, and you want to talk about Saints quarterbacks, like maybe he should be the guy that they throw in there again because they are paying him way too much, right?
Yeah.
So give me Taysom Hill. We've seen the upside multiple times this year. Why not this Sunday?
Yeah, and Juwan Johnson being out, he definitely gets a big bump there.
At least from tight end, being a tight end himself, not just a rush or running back. Let's see if we can do another quick one. Let's see if we'll do a lightning round by position. Brock Purdy or Tyler Huntley?
Huntley, easy.
Huntley.
Okay, good, smart. Kenny Pickett or Mike White?
Mike White.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that was gonna be a good one. Latavius Murray or Jerick McKinnon?
PPR?
Yeah.
McKinnon.
Okay. Nico Collins or Corey Davis?
Corey Davis.
That one's I'm pretty indifferent. I think I'll agree with Corey Davis just because of the amount. Yeah,
Dallas defense.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's smart. That's a good one. Matt Collins or Michael Gallup?
Michael Gallup.
Yeah.
Juicy. I like that one. I was not expecting that one. Dawson Knox or Hunter Henry?
Taylor? That's your one of those guys is your boy.
Yeah. I think I would go Knox, but go. Well, yeah, I'll go Knox, but I don't really have a whole lot of why I'm leaning that way. He's more consistent.
Get some help.
More consistent of two inconsistent players.
Well put. I will also take Knox. He's Josh Allen's his quarterback. Give
Yeah.
me Dawson Knox.
Yeah.
That's a fair one. I like that one. All right, last one: Daniel Bellinger or Foster Moreau.
So
Fucking
I
neither.
think the answer is Foster Moreau, but I really like Bellinger.
Sorry. We got to the last 2 minutes and I dropped an F-bomb.
All right.
Okay.
Well, life goes on. Nobody's gonna. We're not on FCC. You'll be fine. So he said neither.
Yeah. No, I think the answer is Moreau, but I like Bellinger more, and the fact that they have very little receiving options in that on that team. Bellinger coming back from his injury, I think he's on the up and up, but Moreau's been pretty solid lately.
Yeah, Moreau for me as well. It's a good call.
Moreau, good. All right.
I'll throw one last one out.
Yeah.
Real quick, we got 60 seconds.
K. Dotton or Noah Fant.
Give me Fant this week
Fant.
with Brait. Just Brait was out with an illness last week, so unless that's extensive, he should be back.
Yeah. And I like Fant the way he's been turning up the last 4 weeks or so. That is going to do it for episode 26. We want to thank Zac Graham for being with us. Zac, we appreciate you coming on the show. You are always welcome back to shoot us a message. This has been an absolutely lovely time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely. Zac's Twitter will be in the YouTube description for those of you watching the YouTube video. Taylor, as always, it has been a good show. We will be back on Friday for the Week 14 preview. As always, we are going to sign off with Bob Barker saying salute to all of you.
Bob Barker reminding you.
Peace out, y'all.
That population. Have your pets spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
See you guys around.